Today we need to talk about the local council bin lid controversy. When international onlookers contemplate the magnificent machinery of global governance, their minds naturally drift to high-stakes summits, sweeping international treaties, and majestic parliaments filled with grand historical rhetoric. But if you really want to observe the true unyielding bedrock of civil administration within the United Kingdom, you must bypass the grand halls of Westminster and direct your attention toward the local parish council meeting. It is within these small, fluorescent-lit community centres that the absolute peak of British political drama unfolds, usually over matters that would make the United Nations look incredibly relaxed by comparison. Recently, an ordinary municipal administrative gathering in a quiet corner of the country completely devolved into an intense multi-hour philosophical battleground that has captured the absolute bewilderment of the nation. The core of this unprecedented civic emergency did not revolve around local tax rates, failing public infrastructure, or the funding of vital community services for vulnerable populations. Instead, the entire democratic process was completely held hostage by a ferocious and deeply divided debate regarding the exact permissible shade of green for residential recycling wheelie bin lids. So, for our global audience unfamiliar with the inner workings of British suburban life, the weekly refuse collection routine is treated with a kind of intense religious reverence normally reserved for major national events. The color coordination of their waste receptacles is a matter of supreme sociological importance, acting as a direct reflection of a neighborhood's collective moral character and aesthetic standards. And on this historic afternoon, a fierce faction of hardline traditionalists squared off against an equally determined group of progressive eco-subscribers in an ideological clash of truly monumental proportions. The traditionalist camp, comprised largely of deeply concerned local homeowners who view any aesthetic alteration as a direct threat to Western civilization, argued passionately for a classic understated British racing green. They fiercely asserted that a muted, historically respectable hue was absolutely essential to preserve the dignified, timeless visual character of their historic English village streets. On the other side of the community hall, the progressive environmental faction lobbied aggressively for a vibrant, high-visibility chartreuse or leaf green, claiming that a brighter tone would psychologically stimulate citizens to recycle more cardboard. And what followed was a magnificent 3-hour intellectual gridlock that political commentators across the digital landscape are already calling the single most defining municipal crisis of the entire afternoon. Grown adults, individuals who hold serious professional qualifications and manage complex households, spent hours aggressively gesturing at color swatches and debating the subtle psychological differences between forest green and Kelly green. The sheer structural absurdity of watching local elected officials cross-examine each other over the exact chemical pigments of a plastic garbage container lid is a level of comedy that no professional satirist could ever dream of writing. The meeting reportedly reached a fever pitch when a prominent traditionalist member dramatically claimed that introducing an unauthorized shade of lime green would actively plummet local property values and invite absolute anarchy to the high street. The progressive wing immediately countered this rhetorical escalation by suggesting that sticking to a conservative dark green lid was a literal act of environmental betrayal that would alienate the youth of the district forever. And outside onlookers can only marvel at the absolute luxury of a society that possesses enough peace and stability to dedicate an entire evening to the intense scrutiny of plastic waste infrastructure. In a global media environment currently saturated with incredibly heavy headlines and deeply stressful international news cycles, tracking the magnificent illusion of this local council battle provides an unparalleled reason to smile. And it reminds us all that no matter how complex the world becomes, the true heart of British suburban life will always be defined by a fierce, unyielding argument over the precise aesthetic guidelines of the weekly trash collection. Until the final consensus is achieved, the local residents must endure the agonizing uncertainty of not knowing which exact shade of chlorophyll will adorn their waste management experience.